Task 8 talks about operating as a representative in terms of the FAIS Act. Task 8 has 12 qualifying criteria. Let's look at Task 8, Qualifying Criteria 6. Explain when a representative should be under supervision. We will look at how certain representatives of an FSP who do not meet all their fit and proper requirements would work under supervision. We will be looking at Section 8 of the FAIS Act, covering the licensing of an FSP by the Registrar or Commissioner and appointment of the representative by the FSP. Board Notice 104 of 2008, covering representatives working under supervision. And Board Notice 194 of 2017, covering general competence requirements of the FSP, key individuals, and representatives. First, let's take a look at Section 8 of the FAIS Act. Anyone who wants to render financial services, advice, and/or intermediary services must obtain authorization from the registrar to do so. This is according to Section 8 of the FAIS Act. That authorization comes in the form of a FAIS license. Please remember that in these videos, we refer to the office of the FSCA as the Commissioner, the Registrar, or even the Authority. These words are used interchangeably to refer to the regulator, which is the FSCA. In order to apply and obtain a FAIS license, the following process must be followed. Firstly, an applicant will lodge an application in a prescribed format with the FSCA. This must be sent with the relevant supporting documents. There is a prescribed license application fee that needs to be paid for the application to be considered. Note that you are an applicant until authorization is granted. Only then do you become an FSP. In considering the application, the FSCA may ask for additional information. Some of this information may come from external sources, such as the FAIS Ombud and other regulatory bodies. The FSCA will also look at the applicant's nominated key individual to see if he or she complies with the fit and proper requirements. If all the said fit and proper requirements are met, as per the FAIS Act, the FSCA will then grant a FAIS license to the FSP. Each license may come with conditions and/or restrictions which must be complied with at all times. Should the FSP fail to comply, then the license may be suspended and ultimately withdrawn. The next time you visit an FSP, try to find their license certificates that must be visibly displayed on their walls at their offices. The conditions and restrictions that may come with the FAIS license can cover the following: the applicant and its key individual, the category, subcategory, and financial services the FSP will render, the classification category in which the FSP will be licensed for under the FAIS Act, the category, product, or subcategory the FSP will render. There are 5 standard license conditions. These standard license conditions apply to all FSPs. Let's go through each one. The first license condition has to do with changes in the profile of the original FSP submission and authorization, called profile changes. The FSP must notify the FSCA of any profile changes in the prescribed format and submit this to the FSCA within 15 days of such changes having taken place. Profile changes include a change of any of the following: the business structure and name, the directors or shareholders or members, the business address and contact details, the bank account details, the compliance officer details, the details of the key individuals, existing and additional, the auditor and/or accountant, addition or removal of financial products or subcategories, the addition or removal of any representatives, and representatives' information. Note that some profile changes raise a prescribed fee. The second license condition has to do with an FSP always having a key individual. An FSP must at all times have a key individual. If there is a change in the details of a key individual, then the registrar must be notified within 15 days. Please note that a change of a key individual could result in changes in the license conditions of subcategories or products. For example, if a key individual is replaced with another that has lesser qualifications and experience on the initially authorized subcategories or products, then the license conditions will change. There is an exception to this. If a key individual is replaced with another that has the same or greater levels of qualifications and experience, then the license conditions may be left unchanged. The third license condition has to do with the representatives register. Representatives' information must be recorded and updated on the representatives register. Changes to this rep register must be submitted to the FSCA within 15 days of changes made. The fourth license condition has to do with the changes to the business name. An FSP must not in any way change the name of the FSP that is on its license certificate without being granted permission by the FSCA. Changes in the business name will take place if the registration number of the company does not change. Otherwise, it would mean that a different FAIS license must be applied for. The fifth license condition has to do with products an FSP is allowed or authorized to render financial services on. An FSP is allowed to only deal with subcategories or products or from licensed product suppliers. This means that a licensed broker or FSP must not sell products of an unlicensed insurer or FSP. The 5 license conditions mentioned apply to all authorized FSPs. It is therefore the responsibility of an FSP through its key individual to ensure that it complies with these standard license conditions. An applicant applying for health service benefits will also need to obtain accreditation from the Council for Medical Schemes. The Council for Medical Schemes is the regulator for medical schemes in South Africa. The license and accreditation in this case are linked. So if the FAIS license is suspended, lapsed, or withdrawn, then the medical scheme's accreditation will also be suspended, lapsed, or withdrawn. The issued license will make reference to specific categories and the various subcategories or products, and there should be a key individual or multi-key individuals to oversee each product or subcategory the FSP has been authorized for. For representatives, it's important for them to know about the different license categories and subcategories or products as defined in the FAIS Act. This is because they also need to meet the fit and proper requirements to render financial services within the license categories and subcategories they are appointed for. Now we come to license categories, which are classified into categories and subcategories or products. There are 5 categories. Please note that all categories, except for Category 1, are specialist categories or specialize in the functions they offer. We start with Category 1, which relates to FSPs who are not in the specialist categories of 2, 2A, 3, or 4. This means that a Category 1 FSP can give advice and render intermediary services only. By implication, this also means if the business activities of an FSP do not fall under one of the specialist categories, then Category 1 license authorization will apply. Then comes Category 2, also known as the Discretionary FSPs. These FSPs are also referred to as fund or investment managers. A discretionary FSP renders intermediary services of a discretionary nature. It invests clients' funds at its own discretion for a return on that investment. This can be locally or outside of the Republic of South Africa. In this category, there is no bulking or pulling of client funds. The third is Category 2A, which relates to hedge fund FSPs. Hedge funds are a very specialized form of investment and therefore have their own category. These FSPs function like the discretionary FSPs in Category 2, but the funds that they invest are pooled funds from numerous clients. Next, we have Category 3. This one is administrative FSPs. These FSPs buy and sell financial products in bulk and reconcile their books on a daily basis. They do this for their clients, who can be either Category 2 FSPs or natural persons. The last one is Category 4, which is for administration functions and are only considered for intermediary services. They intermediate between the insurance companies like underwriters and the assistance business FSPs like funeral parlors and undertakers. They always have a binder agreement with the insurance company to perform the intermediary function. All 5 categories mentioned, Category 1, Category 2, Category 2A, Category 3, and Category 4 have product subcategories. This means an FSP that applies for a FAIS license would also have to apply for specific products or subcategories. Also, when an FSP changes its license to include other financial services, like advice or intermediary or financial products, the fit and proper requirements of those products and/or services must also be met. Next, we will look at Board Notice 104 of 2008, covering representatives working under supervision. Representatives may render financial services under supervision because they do not have the prescribed experience, qualifications, and/or regulatory exam requirements. Working under supervision will move from a point of regular direct supervision to a point of no supervision over time. Supervision can be broken down into direct supervision, which is where the representative will be supervised on a regular basis, usually daily and weekly supervision. Then we move to what is called an ongoing level of supervision, which is the period of supervision after initial period of direct supervision, but still requires ongoing supervision which is at least bi-weekly, to monthly supervision. Remember, the objective is to move to a point where the representative meets all the fit and proper requirements and no longer needs to work under supervision. We need to understand what the period of supervision is. The supervision period is linked to the category and product or subcategory of the FSP. Basically, the period will depend on what financial products the FSP renders services on. The maximum period under supervision for any category is 6 years. If the representative renders and provides financial services under multiple categories and products or subcategories, then the experience can be obtained at the same time, and therefore the period under supervision will be based on the longest one. The period of supervision starts as soon as the person is appointed to render a service under the specific category and product or subcategory. Any significant interruption during a consecutive 6-week period or longer must be added in addition to the required supervised period. We noted that the period of supervision is dependent on the category and product or subcategory of the financial services being rendered. We will look at the period of supervision per category and subcategory in more detail. We will then look at the selection of the supervisor, the supervision agreement, the supervisor's responsibilities, and what the supervisee or representative under supervision must do and comply with. The FSP must ensure that there is a normal working relationship between the supervisor and the representative. The supervisor provides oversight over the representative as per the agreement. Regular contact is maintained either face-to-face or electronically in order to transfer skills between the supervisor and the representative in the execution of their duties. The supervisor does not need to be a key individual, but must have the relevant skills, knowledge, and expertise in the respective financial service and financial product. Next, we look at the supervision agreement. There must be a written agreement in place, which may or may not be part of the representative's performance management contract. It must detail the procedures regarding the rendering of services under supervision. Next, we look at the supervisor's responsibilities. The supervisor must ensure that the representative has a good understanding of and exposure to the categories and subcategories he or she is rendering financial services on. The supervisor must assess the advice given by the representative for appropriateness based on a review of the analysis conducted and the record of advice provided. To ensure the FSP takes the necessary action to protect the client if found that the representative may not have acted in the client's interest. The supervisor must observe selected meetings between the representative and customers, the frequency of which may vary according to the complexity of the service that is rendered and/or the complexity of the products offered, and/or the experience of the representative, and/or the qualifications of the representative. The FSP is required to ensure that the representatives are supervised at all times while executing their duties in terms of the supervisory agreement. The supervisor and the supervised representative must have properly documented evidence of the supervision, the method followed, and frequency that took place during the period under supervision. The FSP must ensure that the supervisor is able to provide evidence of the supervision actions undertaken, and such evidence must be available for scrutiny by the registrar. Remember that the Registrar, Commissioner, or FSCA all refer to the same body. Next, we look at what the representative must do under supervision. The representative must adhere to the requirements of the supervision contract. The representative must disclose to the client that they are working under supervision. The representative is to provide the supervisor with any records and/or documents regarding the advice given and/or intermediary services rendered. The representative is to request guidance from the supervisor if in doubt when performing any duties in relation to the supervision contract. The representative is to undertake the relevant product training and actively pursue the completion of the required qualifying criteria within the prescribed time limits. Lastly, we are going to look at the period of supervision. We touched on this earlier, but now we will look at it in detail and discuss the differences in period of supervision depending on the category and subcategory of the financial service being rendered. First, let's look at supervision applicable to representatives of Category 1 and 4 financial services. The following table highlights from left to right the categories of the FSP and then the subcategories of the financial services offered, followed by the period of direct supervision and then ongoing supervision. It is important to remember, we saw earlier in this video the difference in direct and ongoing supervision. Understanding the difference between these two types of supervision is very important. The table is split between Category 1 and Category 4, and then the subcategories for each. We have tried to simplify this by making it easier to understand by groupings and the time of supervision related to each. Category 1 providers have 1. Short and long-term insurance and pension benefits have 2 months direct supervision and the rest of the period being ongoing level of supervision. 2. Securities, investments, and Forex have 4 months direct supervision and the rest of the period being ongoing level of supervision. 3. Health insurance, basically medical aid insurance, have 2 months direct supervision and the rest of the period being ongoing level of supervision. 4. Long and short-term deposits have 6 weeks direct supervision and the rest of the period being ongoing level of supervision. 5. Friendly society benefits have 2 weeks direct supervision and the rest of the period being ongoing level of supervision. Category 4 Assistance Business FSPs have 6 weeks direct supervision and the rest of the period being ongoing level of supervision. You can see that the more riskier and more complex the financial products, then the longer the direct supervision period. Next, we will look at supervision applicable to representatives of Category 2, 2A, and 3. For Category 2 and 2A providers, the supervisor is to ensure all actions taken by representatives adhere to the mandate between the client and the FSP. The supervisor must conduct weekly sample checks to ensure that the representative adheres to the mandate and/or investment team meetings. The supervision requirements may not be less intense over the period of supervision. Rendering a discretionary financial service, Category 2 and 2A. The supervisor must review and approve in writing the rendering of such services prior to conclusion or execution of any transaction. Rendering a discretionary financial service, Category 2 and 2A, under Category 3 Administrative FSP. The supervisor must review and approve the transaction before it's finalized in respect of all representative under Category 3 providers. But if not feasible, before then within reasonable time thereafter. We have covered all the elements relating to the representative working under supervision. Sometimes the categories of FSPs are difficult to understand, so we have done a little summary highlighting some of the important differences which may be useful. An FSP is to be registered and authorized based on categories and products, or also called subcategories, that it offers. The type of categories and product or subcategories will impact the FSP's and key individuals' experience, competence, and qualifications. The categories are Category 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as 2A, which is a specific type of discretionary FSP dealing in hedge funds, would also need to be registered and authorized as a Category 2A FSP. One of the most important differences to be aware of is that a Category 1 FSP provides and gives advice and or render intermediary financial services, where the other categories all only provide and render intermediary services. Most FSPs would fall into Category 1 because if they provide any advice, then it would make them a Category 1 FSP. Another easy rule to remember is that if the FSP does not meet the specific requirements to be a Category 2, 3, or 4, then it possibly would be a Category 1 FSP. Now let's look at the other categories in detail. Category 2 FSPs are what is known as discretionary FSPs. This is where the FSP is mandated to make decisions based on its own discretion on behalf of the client. As mentioned earlier, a Category 2A is a subcategory of Category 2, in that it has a discretionary FSP, but specifically being a hedge fund FSP. So a Category 2A FSP will be registered and authorized as a Category 2A, but also as a Category 2 FSP. The difference between the two will be the pulling of funds for the purpose of investment on behalf of clients. Category 3 FSPs are administrative FSPs and are non-discretionary. Therefore, they invest funds based on a mandate. These perform a bulk transaction, not per individual client, with daily reconciliation of its transactions. Important to maybe mention that you as a client may deal with a Category 1 FSP who gives you advice on what to invest in, and they will then deal with the Category 3 FSP, being the unit trust, on your behalf as to how much is invested in unit trusts. The Category 3 FSP will invest it based on a set structure with other money received based on set mandates set up by the unit trust. Lastly, we have Category 4 FSPs that are called Assistance Business FSPs. These Assistance Business FSPs act as an intermediary between the insurance company and the product suppliers. The relationship between Category 4 and the product supplier, or known as the product provider, could be based on a binding agreement. We have deliberated on the categories of FSPs, but we also need to mention that these categories then have products or subcategories. A Category 1 being the largest category and covering more aspects of financial services, with 26 subcategories, where Category 2 and 3 FSP are limited to intermediary services, with only 20 subcategories. Lastly, we will look at Board Notice 194 of 2017, specifically Section 12 dealing with the general competence requirements of FSPs, key individuals, and representatives. A representative needs to meet the fit and proper requirements. Here we are not talking about how many push-ups they can do or how many kilometers they can run, but rather about how honest and competent they are when it comes to the rendering of the financial services. 1. Honesty, integrity, and good standing. Basically, can he or she be trusted? 2. Competence. Basically, does he or she know what he or she has to do? 3. Continuous Professional Development, or CPD for short. Basically, does he or she update his or her skills and/or knowledge with new developments within the financial sector or industry? Let's take a detailed look into the requirement of honesty, integrity, and good standing. Honesty is defined as being truthful, sincere, and free of deceit. Integrity is defined as doing the right thing in a reliable way. Good standing is defined as the status of a member of a profession, basically comply with all the obligations of membership and is not suspended or debarred. The FSP will evaluate these qualities based on the information available or brought to the FSP's attention. Here it is important to note that it's not only based on the information provided by the representative, but any information the FSP can obtain in order to determine if the representative meets the requirements of honesty, integrity, and good standing or not. There are 3 things that the FSP must consider when evaluating the representative's honesty, integrity, and good standing. 1. The seriousness of any conduct identified and its potential impact. 2. The relevance of any conduct and/or behavior identified. 3. The time since any identified conduct happened. The representative must disclose in a timely manner and with their own initiative or relevant information so that the FSP can determine if the representative is fit and proper. If the representative is a juristic representative, for example a company, then we will look at the corporate behavior and therefore the behavior of its leaders as well. Here we have some examples of what is not considered to meet the requirements of fit and proper when it comes to honesty, integrity, and good standing. 1. Found guilty of any criminal or civil proceedings. 2. Been convicted where penalty of imprisonment or a significant fine. 3. Accepted civil liability. 4. Subject to frequent material preventative, remedial, or enforcement actions by FSP or registrar or commissioner. 5. Removal from office of trust. 6. Breach of fiduciary duties. 7. Suspended, dismissed, or disqualified from acting as a director, public officer, auditor under any law. Basically, if there are confirmed cases of not acting honestly, with integrity, or circumstances around good standing, then this will influence if a representative meets this requirement of fit and proper or not. We have covered honesty, integrity, and good standing. Now let's take a look at competence. Under competence, there is minimum experience, minimum qualification, a regulatory examination, RE, class of business, and product-specific training that needs to be met in order to meet the competency, fit, and proper requirement. Some things we need to know. Competence is defined as the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. When thinking about competence, it is important to understand the link between financial category and financial products. Financial categories are Category 1, 2, 2A, 3, or 4, depending on the type of services, the FSP, and what the representative renders services on. Financial products or subcategories are the products offered within those categories, such as short-term insurance, personal lines. So we can see that it is rather specific in terms of what a representative competencies are linked to. Competencies are considered to have lapsed if a representative has not rendered a financial service for a financial product per a financial category for 5 consecutive years. Simply put, if you have not given or provided financial advice for 5 consecutive years, and the word consecutive is important, then it's deemed you are no longer competent in that specific financial product. So let's take a look at the minimum experience required to be considered fit and proper. The minimum requirements are prescribed. You will notice that the differences in time is due to the fact that the more complicated and risky the financial product is, the more experience is required and or needed, as well as whether you are giving advice or just rendering or providing an intermediary service. You can also notice how competency in terms of experience is linked to a category, then a financial product in that category, and the type of financial service being provided, either being advice or intermediary services. Take a moment to look at the financial product groupings and the minimum experience needed per product. Next, let's have a look at the minimum qualifications required and needed in order to be considered as competent and meeting the fit and proper requirements. Firstly, what is the definition of a qualification? We have 3 types. 1. A qualification is offered by an educational institution or accredited provider and meets the criteria per the National Qualifying Framework, NQF Act. Or 2. A professional program. Or 3. A foreign qualification or foreign professional program that has been evaluated by SAQA as being equivalent to a qualification or program in South Africa. So basically, a foreign qualification that's comparable to our South African qualification. A list of qualifications required and needed are prescribed by the registrar. Qualification requirements can be different for each representative depending on the financial product and financial category they provide financial service on. Representatives working for Category 1 FSPs are excluded from the qualification requirements if A. They only render financial services of financial products relating to long-term insurance Category A and friendly society benefits. B. They only perform execution of sales functions provided representatives has Grade 12 and is under direct supervision by a key individual and is using a script. And telephone sales are recorded. And controls to ensure the representative is not giving advice and not misleading customers. BN 104 of 2008 covers this exclusion of qualifications as well. Next, let's look at the regulatory examination, RE. Representatives need to pass the regulatory exam 5, RE5 for short. This exam is set and delivered by examination bodies approved by the registrar. You should take note that the term registrar and commissioner refer to the same body. Representatives working for Category 1 FSPs are excluded from the RE requirements who A. Only render financial services or financial products relating to long-term insurance Category A and friendly society benefits. B. Only if perform execution of sales function for Tier 1 financial products provided that the representative has Grade 12, direct supervision by key individual and is using a script, telephone sales recorded, controls to ensure not giving advice and not mislead customers. C. Rendering a financial service for Tier 2 financial products. Lastly, under the competence consideration is class of business and product-specific training. Let's look at class of business training and what it means. Don't confuse class of business with the FSP category. Class of business is, for example, short-term personal or commercial lines insurance, long-term insurance, pension fund benefits, short and long-term deposits, structured deposits, investments, and health service benefits. Representatives working for Category 1 FSPs are excluded from the class of business training requirements if A. Only render financial services or financial products relating to long-term insurance Category A and friendly society benefits. B. Only if perform execution of sales function for Tier 1 financial products, provided that the representative has Grade 12, direct supervision by key individual and is using a script, telephone sales recorded, controls to ensure not giving advice and not mislead customers. C. Rendering a financial service for Tier 2 financial products. Product-specific training deals more on specific products, covering specific characteristics, fee structures, nature, features, risks, etc. Product-specific training is not applicable to representative working for Category 2, 2A, and 3 FSPs. So basically this requirement applies to representatives working for Category 1 and 4 FSPs. We have now covered the class of business training and product-specific training as it relates to the competency requirement of fit and proper. So we have covered competence, and now we move to continuous professional development, or CPD for short. As mentioned, CPD means continuous professional development. Many professions have this requirement, which is to ensure that members of a profession keep their skills and knowledge up to date by doing a certain number of hours of development and learning in a yearly cycle. The CPD cycle in this case runs from 1st June to 31st May every year. Representative must maintain the required competence, therefore CPD is to enforce continued learning. CPD activities must be 1. Relevant. 2. Contributes to skills, knowledge, etc. 3. Address needs or gaps in knowledge. 4. Take into account changes in laws. CPD activities must be tailored to meet the specific knowledge, skills needs, and gaps of the representative. The number of CPD hours are dependent on the number of class of business and subclass of business the representative provides financial services in. This makes sense because the more different financial products you deal with, the more time you will need for training and updates on the different products. Therefore, if the representative only deals with a single class of business and a single subclass of business, then a minimum of 6 hours per CPD cycle is required. Then you can see we just keep adding an additional 6 hours for a single class with multiple subclasses of business to get to 12 hours, and then an additional 6 hours if you're dealing with multiple classes of business to get to 18 hours per CPD cycle. There may be certain situations where these hours must be apportioned based on the number of months worked in a CPD cycle. If appointed within the CPD cycle, then must apportion hours required based on period remaining. CPD hours may also be reduced due to 1. Maternity and/or parental related leave. 2. Long-term illness or disability leave. 3. Extended family responsibility leave. When we apportion the minimum hours, we will do this based on the number of months worked as compared to a 12-month period. CPD hours can't be reduced for more than one cycle unless extended leave falls over the end and/or beginning of a cycle. The CPD cycle can't be reduced for more than 3 cycles. Representative are to submit evidence of CPD hours to the FSP within 15 days after expiry of CPD cycle. So basically by the 15th of June. So we have covered honesty, integrity, good standing, competence, and continuous development. We have now covered all the sections relating to Task 8, Qualifying Criteria 6. We will look at some possible questions you may be asked. Question 1. The FSP must enter into a written supervision agreement with the supervised representative prior to them rendering financial services under supervision. This agreement may form part of any other relevant agreement or the FSP's performance management process. What should this agreement include? 1. Identify who the supervisor is. 2. The tasks and functions the supervised representative performs on behalf of the FSP, including the category of financial services and financial products in respect of which the supervision agreement applies. 3. The appropriate and relevant knowledge, skills, and experience required to competently perform the tasks and functions referred to in the agreement. 4. The training needs of the supervised representative and the training program that will be implemented to address those needs. Choose between option A, B, C, D, or E. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option E. All the points laid out would be included in the agreement between the FSP and the supervised representative. Make sure you read through this question as this is a good learning opportunity. Question 2. Zama is a representative for Category 1 and renders an intermediary service and gives advice in the long-term insurance Category A and personal short-term insurance. What is the specific supervision period that will apply to Zama if she does not meet the experience requirements on appointment? 1. For both subcategories, she needs to work for the first 2 months under direct supervision. 2. For both subcategories, she needs to work under ongoing supervision after 2 months for the rest of the period under supervision. 3. For both subcategories, she needs to work for the first 4 months under direct supervision. 4. For both subcategories, she needs to work under ongoing supervision for 4 months. Make a choice between option A, B, C, or D. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option A. 2 months under direct supervision and the remaining of the time under ongoing supervision. You would be able to have seen this in the table provided earlier in the video. Question 3. Jeremy has been asked to supervise a new representative. You have been asked to advise Jeremy on which of the following responsibilities he would need to do. 1. Ensuring the representative has a good understanding of and exposure to the product category in which the financial service is rendered. 2. Observation of selected meetings between the representative and the clients. 3. Being able to provide evidence of supervision actions undertaken, which must be properly documented, including the method followed and frequency of supervision. 4. Keeping a record of evidence available for scrutiny by the FSCA. 5. Developing learning material to ensure the representative is up to speed with the latest developments. Choose between option A, B, C, D, or E. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option B. Jeremy would need to ensure he covered everything from 1 to 4. The development of learning material would be up to the FSP to organize and not the supervisor. The supervisor would need to make sure the representative attends his or her training as part of their development, but would not have the responsibility of actually developing the learning material. Question 4. Thandi is preparing for her RE5 exam, and she is so confused about what direct supervision means. Can you help her based on the options provided? A. Direct supervision is the supervision of the financial services rendered by a representative under the guidance, instructions, and supervision of a supervisor, and which occurs on a monthly basis. B. Direct supervisions is the supervision of the financial services rendered by a representative under the guidance, instructions, and supervision of a supervisor, and which occurs on a regular, ranging between daily and weekly basis. C. Direct supervision is the supervision of records rendered by a third-party compliance officer. D. Direct supervision is supervision provided by a key individual. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option B. Direct supervisions is the supervision of the financial services rendered by a representative under the guidance, instructions, and supervision of a supervisor, and which occurs on a regular, ranging between daily and weekly basis. Question 5. What are the general competency requirements that John must have to be a representative at the date of appointment by the FSP? 1. John must have full experience requirements, as working under supervision only applies to key individuals. 2. John must have the minimum experience requirements unless he works under supervision. 3. John must have completed all the CPD requirements. 4. John must have all the required qualifications unless he works under supervision. Choose option A, B, C, or D. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option C. John must have the minimum experience and required qualifications to be appointed as a representative unless he works under supervision. Question 6. Jason is working under supervision for 2 years. A client complained about the advice she received 6 months ago from Jason and said she was not told that he was working under supervision. Diane is Jason's supervisor. What could have been done to avoid this? A. Diane should have informed the client that Jason is working under supervision. B. Diane should have overseen the advice that Jason had given the client. C. Jason should have given the details of Diane to the client. D. Jason should have disclosed to the client that he is working under supervision. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option D. Jason should have disclosed to the client that he is working under supervision. As Jason had been working for 2 years under supervision, he would be under ongoing supervision and not direct supervision. Therefore, Diane would not have been checking everything that Jason was doing. But it would be important for Jason to let the client know that he is working under supervision so that the client was aware. Question 7. When assigning a supervisor to the supervised representative, which of the following statements is false? A. The supervisor must have relevant skills, knowledge, and expertise in respect to the financial services and financial products the representative will be dealing with. B. The supervisor must meet the minimum competency requirements, including CPD requirements applicable. C. The supervisor must be someone who is a key individual. D. The supervisor may be a key individual approved to manage the financial services and class of business for which the supervised representative will be working under supervision. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. Remember, you are looking for the false statement. The option which is false is option C. A supervisor does not need to be a key individual. It may often be the key individual, but it can be another representative if they have the relevant skills, knowledge, and expertise in respect of the financial services and financial products the supervised representative is dealing in, and they need to meet the minimum CPD requirements. Question 8. Rihanna has heard so many statements about a supervision agreement, and now she's not sure what is true and not true. Please help Rihanna understand which of these statements is correct. A. The FSP must enter into the supervision agreement after the supervised representative has been working for at least 6 months to ensure the FSP contracts a fit and proper representative. B. The supervision agreement may be a verbal agreement. C. The supervision agreement must be a written agreement completed prior to rendering the financial services under supervision. D. The supervision agreement may not form part of the performance management process. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. Remember, you are looking for the correct statement. The correct statement is option C. The supervision agreement must be a written agreement completed prior to rendering the financial service under supervision. Remember to learn from the other answers in the question. All questions must be seen as a learning opportunity. Question 9. Rihanna is drawing up a supervision agreement and she has been told the following things. Which of the statements that she has been told is incorrect? A. The supervision agreement does not necessarily need to state the name of the supervisor. B. The supervision agreement must state the tasks, functions that the supervised representatives must perform on behalf of the FSP. C. The supervision agreement must state the categories of financial services and financial products which the supervised representative will deal with. D. The supervision agreement must set out the training needs of the supervised representative and the training program that will be implemented to address those needs. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. Remember, you are looking for the incorrect statement. The incorrect statement is statement A. The supervision agreement must state the name of the supervisor. Question 10. Rihanna is now even more confused because she gets told the following about what needs to be included in a supervision agreement. Rihanna asks you to advise her which statements are true. A. The agreement must include the duties and responsibilities of the supervisor and the supervised representative and the sign-off criteria by the supervisor. B. The agreement must include the supervision methodology, tools, process, and procedures, including oversight, monitoring, and assessment methodologies, processes, and procedures. C. The agreement must include the criteria and procedures to assess whether it is appropriate for the supervised representative to work under a reduced level of intensity of the supervision. D. The agreement must include all of the above statements. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. Remember, you are looking for the true statements. All the statements are true, therefore you should have selected option D. Question 11. Which of the following skills are required from the supervisor of a supervised representative? A. Ability to transfer skills. B. Assessment and oversight skills. C. Coaching skills. D. All of the above. The correct answer is D. All of the above. Question 12. When must an FSP update the registers after a representative ceases or stops to render financial services under supervision? A. Within 15 days. B. After 15 days. C. Exactly 15 days. D. 30 days. The correct answer that the representative register must be updated within 15 days. Therefore, option A. Question 13. Carla is a supervised representative. Which of the following are her duties? A. Carla must comply with the provisions of the supervision agreement. B. Carla must actively pursue completion of class of business training, regulatory examinations, and recognized qualifications within prescribed times. C. Carla must disclose to the clients that she is rendering financial services under supervision. D. All of the above. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is all of the above, option D. Question 14. After explaining to Tandy so nicely what direct supervision was, she has come back to you so you can explain what ongoing level of supervision means. A. The representative still requires supervision, and such supervision occurs as and when it is needed. B. The supervision of all services within the FSPs by the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, FSCA. C. The supervision of the financial services rendered by a representative under the guidance, instruction, and supervision of a supervisor, and which occurs on a regular basis, ranging between daily and weekly. D. The way in which supervision is exercised after the initial period of services under direct supervision has been completed, but the representative still requires supervision, and such supervision occurs at least bi-weekly to monthly basis. Pause the video here if you need some time to read over the question and think about your answer. The correct answer is option D. So let's go through a final overview of what has been covered. We have covered when a representative should be under supervision and what process should be followed in terms of that supervision. We would suggest that you go through the material as many times as needed and use the questions as a learning tool and opportunity. Questions give you great insight into how questions are asked, as well as additional information that may not be as clear in the theory from the sections in the Act. We hope you enjoyed the video and learnt a lot. Please make sure to check out our other RE videos.